and welcome to all our members out here who've joined us this evening, especially the newcomers who've joined us. The regular ones, once again, welcome to you all. This is another of our webinars at Get Set Up, and a few of you who've been attending the regular ones have noticed that what we intend to do over here is we address various issues related to finance and health. And largely what we've been doing is last few weeks that some of you who've been regularly attending is we've been taking a topical subject on financial planning or financial well-being. So this class as well has been sponsored by Franklin Templeton. It has been brought to you by Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund. And a little bit about Get Set Up before we kick this off. What is Get Set Up? It's a community. For some of you all who've been very well versed with it, it's a community of older adults where you all are learning and engaging in a peer-to-peer format, socializing and getting connected to new life experiences, and maybe assisting a lot of you all and a lot of us who've been part. Just excuse me about that. You've been experiencing the community in a joyful manner, and effectively, we are helping all of us to age well in place. Our goal is to reduce isolation, loneliness, and equip our community with the tools and knowledge to age independently. Today, we are being joined by a professor of finance, Professor Kapil B. Welcome.
Hello.
An accomplished professional of 20 plus years of experience. He enjoys teaching and actually is very interestingly covering a topic at Guru Nanak Institute of Management Studies. And the topic that he covers over there very, very passionately and really interestedly is behavioral finance. Before I get into what is behavioral finance, I think I'd like to kind of address this in a different way, Professor Kapil, is that all of us as a community are and aging well in place. And effectively, what do we have today is we collect all our savings, all our responsibilities are largely at this part stage of our lives are already either nearing completion or nearly done. And these savings that we've collected over a period of time, largely either as collected investments or provident fund or whatever pension that we get, we then decide that to deploy in a fashion which ensures that we can manage a very extended life, as well as enjoy most of our standard of living that we've been enjoying during a peak of the career. Also, what happens around this time of life is that our peak salary or peak income kind of either tapers off or starts coming down, because that's when we start using our investments or savings to redeploy and earn. Most of us land up getting challenged with our thought processes. And as I was discussing with you earlier when we first met, is that a lot of us land up using these to deploy in various investment opportunities. We learn through various engagements. We learn through our mistakes. We learn from expert professionals. But you told me something very interestingly, that there's a concept called behavioral psychology or behavioral finance, which has an element of human psyche involved in it, because technical skills or fundamental skills are easier to get around or easier to learn over time, but behavioral is the most difficult to actually overcome. I'd like to ask you something very interestingly, and for our learners, is what exactly is behavioral finance, and what exactly is the psyche that we're talking about that needs to be either overcome, understood, so that we don't fall into traps and make some mistakes that we land up making during our investment strategy or investment styles.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to be associated with something like Get Set Up. And I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing out there. Coming to the question of behavioral finance, I think it would be great if I could just give you a little background about how this subject came into public consciousness. Am I audible? Right?
Yes, we can hear you. Anybody, Stanley, you all can hear?
Yeah. Yes, Kapil, you're fine.
Thanks, Anita.
So this subject came into public consciousness only in the late 1980s. where a study was done, a research was done by a few academicians as well as marketers as to why only some people are making, consistently making profits in the stock markets, and why the vast majority of them are losing money, in fact. And one of the things that they came across was that because the few of them had privy to certain information that the vast majority of them didn't have access to. And that was an information gap. And they said that there is this information gap, and that is why only some people who have access to inside information or certain things about stocks or the companies, and that is why they are making money, and the vast majority of them are not making money. Today, in this information age, where the challenge is not the access to the information, but in fact, there is too much information, the problem should have been solved because now all of us have access to the information. But still, the problem remains as to why only a few people are consistently making money and the vast majority of them are not making money. And then they realize that the problem was not the access to the information, but in the way a human mind interprets information with all its biases. And they came up with a single most assumption. See, as opposed to traditional economics or traditional finance, what is the single most assumption? The single most assumption is that human beings are rational. We all are rational, and we would like to maximize our gains, minimize losses, and have a total utility approach towards things. Behavioral economists broke down that single most assumption by making a new assumption that no, human beings are not rational. We are not rational. We are normal. And by normal, we mean that although overall we are rational human beings, but there are several instances where we take irrational emotional decisions in our everyday life, outside of our investing life. And the same behavioral pattern goes into when we start investing actively in the stock markets. The only thing is, in the outside world, when we are making those emotional or irrational mistakes, the losses are emotional and irrational. And when the irrational mistakes are made in the stock markets, the blowback is financial. And that is where behavioral finance, really kicked off as a subject. And they started realizing that human mind, human behavior is full of biases. There are several instances where we behave irrationally, and the same irrationality then harms us when we are investing in the stock markets. And today, I can tell you that a lot of research has been done in terms of trying to understand investor behavior, and those are giving us great insights as to why some people are making profit and some people are not making enough money in the market. I think that is where behavioral finance comes into picture.
So, Professor, I think let's step back. Actually, just for the benefit of all our members, what we're going to do is we're going to take questions at the end from our members. But everyone who's joined in, please do put them on the chat. We'll take it at the end of the session, which will be about 35 odd minutes from now, earlier. And as we step into now behavioral finance per se, it's more about psyche, more of the psychology, it's more about irrational or rational behavior. Today's topic being joys of investing. How do you derive that joy? What's that essence of human behavior that one can achieve in terms of whatever the small amount of investing gain is there? How does one achieve that in a sense where there's too much of information, there's too much of analyzing to be done out of it, and one needs to at the same time the balance between safety and returns. So what would it be a strategy when you're teaching these courses across? How does one balance all of this and derive investing?
Well, let us start at the very basic. When we are talking about investing, what exactly are we doing here? We go to work, we have our businesses, we serve, we are working, and we make money, we save money, and then we invest that money. But when we are investing, what exactly are we doing, sir? We are postponing our current consumption to future consumption. Nobody is really going to stop you from, spending that money in whatever that gives you joy. But we choose to postpone our consumption so that we can consume more when we go ahead. And that is the connecting point between investing, the joy of investing, and a very critical approach as to why some people are successful and why some people are not successful. Is that research has shown that successful people have the ability to delay gratification. And that is one of the single most differentiating factors. And what is this ability to delay gratification? I'll just give you an example. Okay, we go to the gym. You see a lot of people pulling weights, running on the treadmill, and when they run on the treadmill, they're pulling the weights immediately after they have completed their workout. What is the first thing that they do? Well, I've seen people go and stand on the, stand to measure the weight, because it shows that they want instant results. You pull weights and you immediately approach the mirror to show if the bicep is now forming. And I mean, everyone does it. And because everyone does it, it seems normal. But what is the logic? By just one workout or two workouts, are you really going to reach that goal? And then what is your goal? Eventually, successful people will do that thing because it is necessary to do, irrespective of whether they want to do it at that point in time or not. And I think that is very similar to a good investing plan. The discipline aspect of it, that you should invest and stay invested, for the joy of investing, because the joy of seeing your money grow, that joy only you can get if you stay invested.
I
And-
like, sorry,
Yeah,
finish.
sure.
No, go ahead.
The point that I was trying to make, that I've seen a lot of people, who go, and I am a marathoner myself, and I'm sure you are. You told me that, and the many people who have this. The inspiration was this 65-year-old guy who's, the first time went for a jog, and he was in pain, and he said that I have to complete that 10 kilometers. And I, in my mind, was thinking, why the hell is he pushing himself so much? You're obviously in pain. You're 65. You don't. And he said, no, I don't. I mean, and he was obviously fit, more fitter than what I was at that stage. And I asked him, so he said, I run because I like to run. And if you can reach that stage in any aspect of your life, then you can count that you started to become a success in your own little way. So you invest because you like investing. You like to see your money grow, and that you have made the right decision. The increase in your capital, the return on investment is nothing but a scorecard. But you see, there are only two ways we make mistakes in the stock markets. I'm broadly categorizing. One is what? Selling winners quickly and holding on to losers. Right? And both of them are connected to the inability, again, in us to delay gratification. Result immediately change. That is the problem.
I like the analogy you made about being in a gym or being a marathoner, and how consistency pays. Immediate results are not something that will come by just pushing weights for one day. But if you continuously do, and some of us can relate to it, we hate getting up in the morning to go for that run. But when we come back, there's a huge, or when we even halfway through it, when we are on it, there's a immediate feeling of joy.
Successful people really likes to do what makes him successful.
So is there a mindset shift that we need to do when we're looking at consistent discipline,
Absolutely.
to keep pushing
Absolutely.
and stay regular invested? I remember the time when I started learning about the concept or even selling the concept within my own family members of the SIP culture is that remain disciplined about every month carving out. There will be ups and downs, but as long as you're disciplined, there will be. So there's a mindset shift that you're talking about of trying to ensure that you get joy out of investing and don't expect immediate returns, or don't look at it every now and then. How does one achieve this in terms of when you're saying is that there are, and especially there are volatile times. We've all gone through it in our life. We see volatile times. There is either some immediate need and you feel like getting out of it, or stopping your regular contribution to growth. How does one overcome that? Is that what is that, say, secret sauce that one needs to remember at that point of time and say that no, I will stay invested? How does one overcome that? And I'm sure you interacted with many who can ask you this.
See, I mean, it's an excellent question. We have exercises, but we'll come to it later. Any action is preceded by a thought. You cannot stop thinking. Thoughts will come. So when the markets go down, a thought comes, which is a negative thought. And then you pay attention to that negative thought. You don't watch their thought. And then those thoughts, that thought gives birth to other thoughts. And then an emotion builds up. And by the time the emotion builds up, because human beings will feel first and think later, they immediately start feeling. Now, what are the two feelings that are associated with the markets? Either it's greed or fear. In volatile times, it's fear. And then the fear, that emotion, makes you take an action, which is either stop your SIP or sell your current holdings. I give you an example. I think I always give the example of I think it was March 2020. Just look and tell me what was the share price of HDFC Bank and the Reliance. And what did people think at that point in time? That due to COVID, the world would end and the banks would end and everything would end. Isn't that an irrational thought? But at that point in time, it's an emotional decision. But the point that the price of a particular stock went down by 40% means that somebody purchased it at a 40% discount. We have to have that mindset. What did he think? He thought that, it's not bigger than the Spanish flu, the Second World War. And more terrible things have happened, right? I may not survive. Hence, it is all the more important that I stay invested. Because then I can pass it on to the future generations of my kith and kin and my people who are dependent on it. It starts with a thought. Nothing else. So you first, whenever you call it meditation, you can call it any spiritual exercise. The minute you get that thought, understand from where that thought has come. Actually reason out with that thought with your own mind. Because as far as behavioral finance is concerned, the market is nothing but an extension of the human mind. It is a sum total of individual and collective decisions. People go into panic modes, they sell the stock, then the price goes down, and then how does the mind tell them? They tell them, look, you were right, the fear was right. Wrong. You cannot approach the market. It is nothing. It is your own human mind, your own thoughts, which are going to stop you from being successful or make you successful. And mind you, if you don't pay attention to your thoughts, you might end up being the brilliant architect of your own financial downfall. I'm making a statement out here.
No, that's interesting, and it brings me to the point of, because volatile times are the most difficult to overcome. Staying disciplined is an important one, but we all have biases. We all have
Right.
and we all have our thoughts, which and we hear a lot, we see a lot, we get influenced, and therefore fear sometimes overtakes. How would you then, for at this stage of life, when you actually want to both maximize your returns, because as I said, the earning capacity at this stage of life is kind of saturated, and at the same time you want to take care of the safety of your savings or the pools, because at the same time you don't want to blow it up. So one is staying consistent with your thought after having done research, study, following a certain disciplined approach. What do you bring in the concept of diversification to kind of, because there are needs in between, you may at it could be a situation where you could be hit with a double whammy, because on one side there's volatility, which is giving you a negative return in that case. And on the other side, suddenly, because as you rightly said, COVID, you required to withdraw for medical expenses, for exigencies, emergencies. How do you balance that in terms of trying to, apply a principle of diversification then? What should be a diversification strategy at this for this cohort?
See, I'll tell you, it's an interesting question once again. That we have had times in mutual fund industry. You yourself, you have been this game of mutual funds. SIP is really a great product, particularly because it gives you a kind of a disciplined approach. You can invest small amounts, and you can take advantage. Rupee cost averaging comes into picture whenever the price falls. You can have more number of units, so on and so forth. But when you're talking about diversification, I've been studying profiles for my research. Many a times it does happen that you have invested in different types of funds. All those funds are investing in the same stocks, and there is an overlap. And there was an interesting article in Economic Times about a couple of days back about this mutual funds overlap. So when you are first thing talking about diversification, the interesting thing is that for each of your investment goal, there is a different investment scheme that is available in the market. So if you want to go for a tax saving, then you have a ELSS. You have a large cap fund, you have a mid cap fund, you have a small. You think a particular sector is going to do exceedingly well. You have sectoral funds for it. My own concept is, when you are investing in SIP in different mutual funds, the investor should have clarity as regards what is the goal. For this goal, I'm investing in this fund. For this goal, I'm investing in this fund. So as long as you have the clarity, the overlap is not there. That is point number one. Point number two, this is again my advice, or what I would do is that if a particular mutual fund is doing exceedingly well, try to find out which stocks the mutual fund is investing in and giving you a return, and try to directly invest in those stocks. That's the point. That's how the normal way of approaching investment. You go through the mutual fund route, because a mutual fund house or AMC has the kind of resources, the kind of research that they can do, and they can do a lot of hedging for you. So you need not totally bypass a mutual fund. But if I am investing in a mutual fund which is giving me a 40% return, and that mutual fund is investing in stock A, what stops me from that? Putting some money in that stock A also directly. It also, kinds of validates your investment decision. So that is the diversification part of it. That is very, very essential. The second part of is that, please, this is when you are buying a stock, or when you are investing in a mutual fund which is buying a stock, you are buying the business. You're the shareholder, you're the owner of the business, which means that you need to have, what is the textbook thing? And I know it's slightly academic, but it is true that there is this business which I would like to invest. I think it's a great business. I neither do have the expertise to run the business. That is why I buy the shares and leave the management in the hands of the professionals, right? But I should at least know, I am going to say it in Hindi, कि ये कंपनी पैसा कैसे कमाती है. क्योंकि अगर मुझे ये पता नहीं चलेगा, और मुझे अगर ये पता चलेगा कि ये कंपनी पैसा कैसे कमाती है, then I will know ये कंपनी मेरे लिए पैसा कैसे कमाती है. So that is the second aspect of it. Like, don't be a price investor, because then you buy something for 100 without any idea why you bought it for 100, and now you're waiting for someone who is willing to buy it at 120. That is not a very good way of investments. Look at the company, because if you see the emotion, the fear that causes the panic, you will always fear something that you don't know. And that is the difference between risk and uncertainty. Risk is something that I know can happen. So when I know this can happen, COVID में ये सब नीचे जाने वाला है, my attitude towards the market is different. Tomorrow, because of if Iran steps into the Israel-Gaza war, the crude oil is going to go up, inflation is going to go up. These all things, if I know the reason why this is happening, then it's a risk. Then, now anyone will tell you that risk and return go hand in hand. So if risk is something that I know can happen, and if I increase the risk, I can increase the return. In other words, what I need to increase is I need to increase my knowledge base as to what are the possibilities, what all can happen. Once I know all this can happen, I'm in a better space. I have my peace of mind and I'll have a very positive attitude. Yes, sab ho sakta hai. Beyond that is uncertainty. So, I mean, that is something that, that
nicely put it, that there's so much of overlap within schemes. So what makes it tick, you can easily then analyze a business and take some direct exposure, thereby of course reducing your transaction costs and other stuff, or maybe just increasing your concentration in a particular sector or particular business that you like. For example, you gave an HDFC Bank example. There have been examples given of the Nestle's of the world during COVID. What happened? Ready to eat and stuff like that went up. So people who were in taking that information or analyzing that were taking those kind of, say, calculated risks, or they were buying businesses which they believed in for a longer time. So in terms of diversification, what he's saying is that pick up stuff which yourself as well, or assess your own long-term needs versus short-term needs, and diversify your assets accordingly. Look at it from buying or investing in a business that you believe in, or that you have kind of read about and researched enough, so that you are not waiting on a luck factor that behind it, because you buying a business which how is that corporation functioning. Besides this, in terms of regularly updating your inputs and learnings and staying disciplined, what are the other guidance factors that you could give people that they should rather than follow the herd, or rather than follow a lazy investing strategy, just to ensure that they are, as you rightly said, that they are buying winners and not sitting on losers? What are the ways of keeping yourself abreast and being educated so that you take smarter decisions? To come back to your point about and therefore derive the joy, you come back to your point of to overcome those biases, to be able to overcome those behavioral attitudes towards investing.
Well, I see. I mean,
I think you're on mute.
Oh, am I? No, am I? No,
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Stanley, can anybody hear? Is it me
Yes,
or is it?
No, I can hear.
Kapil?
Yes, you are audible.
I can hear.
Kapil,
you are audible.
Lena?
Yeah.
You are audible.
No, I can't hear you.
I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. To your question, Ashwini, that what other things?
Okay.
See, the fun part is most of that irrational decisions that cause financial losses do not emanate from within the market. It emanates from your behavior outside the market. So if you are conscious of that behavior, and if you observe your behavior outside the markets in your everyday life, and I can give you examples. I'll just give you a very, let's say you go to buy a car, and all of us have, I believe, bought automobiles at different points at their life. We bought a 10 lakh car or a 15 lakh car. Now, if I were to ask you, just go back and understand, what was the amount that you spent on the accessories when you bought the car? And you will find that when you are buying a 10 lakh car, you end up buying, accessories worth 25,000. Normally wouldn't. Normally you would be very cautious in spending your money. But what happens to you when you're buying a 10 lakh car that suddenly 25,000 seems a pittance? So this is again an anomaly, is that you value money differently at different times. So if I could just, I give you another example. And this is what I do in my classrooms also. I take up case studies and case slates and I do a what if analysis. So say there is a person A who wants to go and buy a MP3 player worth 5,000 rupees from a shop. And he or she gets a call that the same MP3 player with the same brand, with the same capacity is available for 4,500. If he or she walks 100 meters across the mall, and she'll get it. And then I asked the particular student as to, will you go and save those 500 by walking those 100 meters? Everybody says yes. And then I give another example that, say 15 days later, you are refurbishing your house and you want to buy a couple of ACs, a television, a washing machine, and whatnot. You go to the same shop and you buy everything for 5 lakhs. Once again, your best friend gives you a call and tells you that you walk across for 100 meters and you will get the same stuff at 4,99,500. And then I ask the candidate, will you go now? And pat comes the reply, no, he won't go. So which means that this particular individual is willing to save 500 in situation 1 and not willing to save 500 in situation 2, despite the fact that the value of 500 has not changed because it's only happening 15 days apart. But to the human mind, when you're spending 5 lakhs, 500 is less. Now, this phenomena is known as mental accounting. This is mental accounting. So you're biased to look at money differently in different situations. And this bias is going to prove detrimental to you in the market. And how? This is, I don't know whether you'll be, but people today are buying age group of 18 to 25. Students are buying OTM options because they are cheaper. I see a smile on Ashwini's face, so I think he probably agrees with me. Why? Because it is cheaper. Jana kya hai, 2,000 hi jayega, upar gaya. So this is what, and this doesn't, because he started investing at 18 or 21, but he's been committing all these follies since the time he's been living. You understand? So this is the kind. So again, holding on to losers. So I went for a movie. I was dating my girlfriend, who is my wife now, and she likes to watch horror movies. So she said, "I will go for a 10 o'clock movie on Sunday because the tickets are cheaper." And I really like that, because who wants to spend that kind of money on entertainment on a film which you don't know whether it will be good or not. So I sat for the movie. There were only 4 people in the theater, including the actor who was performing in the movie. And for the next 45 minutes, nothing happened. And so I told my wife, let's move out. So she said, no. We have spent 400 rupees for this movie, right? So we'll have to watch the whole movie. Now, this is sunk cost fallacy. You buy a stock for 100, it goes down to 60, and you hold on to it because you have purchased it for 100. Now it is 60. So now how can you sell? Kabhi na kabhi upar jayega. This is how you hold on to losers. So the main thing is to have a disciplined life, a rational view about things in your everyday life. That person is more in a correct position to make supernormal gains in the stock markets. Every great investing story is a contrarian story, basically. You bought it when it was ignored by the market, and now everyone wants it, and now it's at a premium. Who is going to wear a watch? We can tell the time by looking at the mobile. Somebody thought different, and that is the Titan story. That is the Titan story. It's a contrarian story. I hope I have answered your question. I don't know. Ashwini, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was just getting off the mute. No, it's interesting you say that, and I think one of the things that all of us, as we kind of deploy those savings, which to derive that joy, one of the things that we all need to do is firstly recognize the fact that we all work with biases, and those biases should be known. Where holding on to winners and getting rid of losers early is or getting rid of losers is a fair one, to mantra to follow. I think the other thing is to be able, one is being self-aware, the second is being self-critical or being open to criticism, and therefore be able to engage in a longer term disciplined fashion, and not hold on to losers long enough. I think holding on to losers is a very interesting concept that you mentioned. A lot of us do that. I've personally have fallen into that trap myself. I like the example that you gave about the 400 rupee movie ticket that might as well now sit through it. Why?
Well,
You could
take your money now, you're wasting your time.
Exactly. So you could have used the 2 hours saved and probably gone for gone for another movie close by, or just got gratification by spending time with each other rather than wasting it in a hall where you're not even enjoying the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that self-awareness is important, and knowing the fact that in these decision making as well, psychology or human brain is playing a role. And interesting that you say that it's only probably in the 80s when this started getting discovered that there's something called behavioral finance or behavioral psychology for even investing decisions that people get used to or get trapped. Quoting, I think Peter Lynch said that, right? Get rid of your winners fast and sorry, get rid of your losers fast and hold on to your winners long. That I think that's something which has stuck in a lot of our heads.
Yeah.
So effectively, what to derive that joy, gratification delaying is important. Staying disciplined is important. Knowing your bias is important. I'd like to actually ask you if there are, certain examples or exercises that one can when I say exercises, maybe I don't know, is there any way of trying to test yourself to be able to figure out that what kind of a bias do you hold on to, or is there, or is there any quick educational way of knowing, so that
we look at portfolios, and the portfolios is like a cardiogram to us. So the cardiogram will tell you about the heart. The same way, a portfolio speaks to you and tells you exactly what kind of biases this person has. What exactly, where has he invested, where has he stayed invested, at what price has he purchased, what is the average price. These will tell you a lot of stories, right? But I'll just take a moment to tell you as to why the joy of investing, and it comes at a very later stage. Let us take an example, say, take a number called 72. The number of 72 will tell you, it's an interesting number because 7 plus 2 is 9. Again, I don't believe in numerology and all that. But if you divide 72 by the return on investment, you will get a doubling period in how much time your money is going to double. So say I'm investing for at 12%, which is, not too big, not too less. 12% is good enough. And 72 divided by 12 gives me a number 6, which means that my money is going to double every 6 years. Right? Now, at this stage, when you are investing in mutual funds, that are in mutual funds, which I know have given a return of more than 20%, which means in 3 years or 3.5 years, your money is going to double. The joy of staying invested is to watch the joy of compounding. And the compounding is magical. Because what is compounding? See, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. So there's this story of a guy who made a rupee and was trying to put it somewhere. There was no bank. He didn't want to give it to his wife because she would spend it. So he tried to hide it in the compound wall of the kingdom of the king, and he was arrested by the the local police out there, and in front of the king he was presented, and he said that, look, I was just trying to hide a coin because my wife would take it, and now I don't know where the coin is because your compound wall is so big. So he said, okay, I'll compensate you. What do you want? I'll give you one coin. He said, I'll take your coin, but I want that coin also. So he said, I'll give you 10 coins. He said, 10 coins leta hu main, lekin I want my coin. Finally, the king offered him 10 gold coins. Even then, he said, I'll take the 10 coins, but I want my one coin. Eventually, he got exasperated. He said, you can't get that coin now. I cannot break the entire compound wall. What do you want? So the king was playing chess. So he said that, you mean one rice ka dana for every square of the chessboard. And in the next square, you give me the double. Let's see where it goes. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1000, 2000, 4000, 8000, 16,000, 32,000, 64,000, 1,28,000, 2,56,000, 5,12,000, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 80 lakhs, 1 crore 60 lakhs, 3 crore 20 lakhs, 6 crore 40 lakhs, 12 crore 50 lakhs, 25 crores, 50 crores, 100 crores, 200 crores, 400 crores. Do you know what happened by the 64th square of the chessboard? The person asking for the rice was the new king of the kingdom, because he had access to all the grain.
That's an interesting way to remember compounding.
Works, be patient, the fun. What happens is, you look at a 52-week low of a stock and a 52-week high of the stock. There is not a single person who has bought it at 52-week low and sold it at 52-week high. There are people, there have been opportunities in 1978, or there was huge opportunity when the government decided that either you list your company with the Indian stock market or you get out. And there was a controller of capital issues. There was no investment banking. And look, in 1978, at what price Nestle was listed. Look at the price of HDFC Bank in 2000. And look from here where it can go. So the joy of investing comes as you go ahead. And yeah, these are senior citizens. I just want to say that you have wealth of experience. You have seen so much. So naturally, your risk-taking ability is much, much better than a 25-year-old. I was always told that when I wanted to spend some money and somebody gave me an advice of investing, I said, why do I invest right now? I want to spend. And he said, look, you are sitting under a tree because somebody planted it. His name might not be there. So for nation building, for wealth creation, for truly passing on our wisdom, investing is one way of really serving your own family, the corporates, and the nations.
Interesting. So let me summarize it so far and then throw open for questions. Please keep pouring in questions, or anybody has questions, just put in the chat. But what we're doing is, to derive that joy, one needs to actually remember is postponing gratification.
Absolutely.
One needs to remember that none of us are rational, so we will make irrational decisions, and some of them may be wrong. So hence, be aware of your biases to be able to do it. Stick with the winners and get rid of losers fast. Don't get emotionally attached to a decision. Remember the rule of 72, and that's a very interesting one. We always have kind of ignored that many times over, but remember the rule of 71 to be able to achieve your goals in the way you want to. And I think in the last part you said about compounding, the power of compounding. So therefore goes back to the approach of regularly, even whatever it is, staying invested, staying in discipline, and keep adding to it. The compounding rate may keep changing by the amount you add, but if you just add the same amount, it just compounds at an attractive level. So I think in all of this, if you try and stick to our long-term strategy, there is definitely a joy that we will achieve. Any questions that people have, we can either throw this open through the chat, or if anybody has a voice question also, we can figure that out. Tina, you can take care of that. Till that time, I haven't seen any questions yet. Till that time, another interesting aspect, Kapil, that I'd like to kind of ask you is you mentioned about the fact that knowing about biases is important. Therefore, remain steadfastly on your disciplined approach. What tends to happen is, or many of us fall into that trap of not being able to make that mindset shift of being able to, what is it is if I were to ask you one simple consistent, either a theory or a case study that you tell your students about it, is to be able to then wake up to the fact that it's been done, people have done it, so stick to that. What is that case study that you like to share, which all of us can take home and say that we need to overcome our biases and stick to our strategy is important. I'm sure that many people you've read and many you refer to your students. Anyone that for our cohort, our generation, that you can offer?
See, there are multiple biases. There is something which is we need to understand why we behave the way we behave, and once you understand that, the system, the human system, mind and body, is designed in such a way that once you realize it, immediately the next time you're going to face a situation where you would have taken a rational decision, you will get that alert from the brain. And I know that the shift does not happen overnight, but nothing does. I mean, what happens over? Nothing happens over. So we need to understand why we have that herd mentality. See, even before we discovered agriculture, decided to grow our own food, we were hunters. And whenever we went hunting to fill our bellies, we always moved in groups because it gave us a sense of safety. Because in case we are attacked by a wild animal, there are so many of us that we'll be able to kill it. That group or herd mentality is a part of our DNA. That is something that we need to understand. It's been there since then. But do we go into the jungle right now to hunt? No, we don't. So now the situation has changed, but our DNA still tells us to move in herd. So everybody is buying that stock. We are also going to buy that stock. See, again, once again, it emanates from outside the market. Action is committed in the market. So that is just one aspect of it. And I mean, you must have visited so many countries. So whenever we are in a foreign country and we want to eat out at a restaurant, we'll go to a restaurant which is crowded. Because it's kind of
because assume that everybody is there, everybody thinks good.
Yeah. So many people are eating that, but so many people went because some people were there. So now in stock markets, it's a market, so you have all kind of diversity, but sometimes the diversity breaks down, and then you have bubbles. And why everyone follows the bubbles? Because everyone follows a story, because there is a story bias. Nobody wants to read a research report. Everybody wants to listen to a story, because see, if I tell you the two stories, one story is king died and then the queen died. And the second is that the king died and the queen died of grief. The second version is very appealing because it has an element of emotion, because we are emotional human beings. But what has actually happened is that the king died and the queen died. She must have died of old age. You understand? So yeah. There are books I would recommend. In fact, there's a wonderful book by Nicholas Taleb called Fooled by Randomness. There is a book by Rolf The Art of Thinking Clearly. But Your senior citizens are there, and I'm sure they must be having grandkids. For the next birthday, the gift should be a wonderful book. The two books that everyone should read, and you better read it sooner than later, I would say, is first, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen in 1925. It is a book that changed my life. Absolutely. I'm a different person before reading the book and after. As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. It is free on the internet. The second book that I would really recommend for, to be given as a gift to grandkids is The Richest Man in Babylon. Please read that book. It is so simple. It's almost like, like a जो बच्चों को हम कहानी सुनाते हैं वैसी स्टोरी है. You read it first. It is hardly 60 pages, hardly 60 to 80 pages. But these books will really, and then what happens, Ashwini sir, you find your tribe. You find people who are logical, but they are doing something which the crowd is not doing. But you form your own niche, and I really hope that Get Set Up becomes that niche which is of that rational thinking and who believes in value investing. It would be really a great thing if this happens.
No, thank you very much. Now, there's an interesting question out here. It says that how can the rule of 72 be applied for mutual funds where we are not even aware of the interest rates?
Well, you are not aware of the interest rate, but you are definitely aware of the rate of return the mutual fund is giving you every year. If the NAV before at the beginning of the year is 100 and now it is 112, which means that it has given you a 12% return. And a 12% return means that if it continues to grow at 12%, then in 6 years, your NAV is going to double, which means your investment is going to double.
So interest rates. So the answer is from your side is that it's not the interest rate that you should be worried about. It's the return that you're getting year on year.
Exactly. When I'm talking about interest rate, because traditional investing happens in fixed deposits and all that, so that there you have a rate of interest. But a rate of interest is nothing but a rate of return. So in mutual funds, you have a rate of return.
There's a big demand for all the books that you have, or names of all the books that you mentioned. So Tina is going to put that on chat, and as well as our members can get from us if they miss out on the chat. But Tina, you can put that at the end of the.
I'll give you a list of books on behavioral finance and value, which is really interesting. One of the foremost expert in this subject, who is no more with us sadly, was an Indian by the name of Mr. Parag Parikh. If you have heard of PFS.
I remember, yes.
But Parag Parikh is someone who brought behavioral finance into the Indian scenario. It was the only good book, value investing in behavioral finance. And I met him once. It's sad that he is no more with us. And so that is one book, again, that everyone should read. Sana ma'am knows. I know Sana ma'am. So, yeah, so these are books. Great to thank you. Thanks, Sana ma'am.
Lovely. I think we're coming to the end of. We have actually just about come to the end of the session. If there are no more questions, then we can close it. But just to summarize as well as closing remarks is that we thank you, Professor Kapil, for sparing your time and giving us the insightful messages, especially on an esoteric, I would say, of not very commonly understood and not very commonly even discussed, is about behavioral finance and the art of postponing gratification and therefore enjoying the joys of investing in the later part of our lives. And I think I'll also would like to kind of thank all our members who've come there, the regular ones who have been listening to our webinars and attending our webinars. Please do give in your suggestions, your feedback, as well as interesting topics that you like to be covered, and we will get people across and address those. And all those who have not yet joined Get Set Up and were attending this for the first time, please join, become a member, download the Android app, and get the benefit of a much larger community, which is one of the largest peer-to-peer community of older adults out in the world. And most importantly, to end, thank you, Franklin Templeton, for allowing us to cover topics which are of interest to our cohort. So with that, Tina, we can end the session. We thank everyone once again, and have a good evening or good day.
Have a good day. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure being here. It's wonderful. You have been a wonderful audience. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, GetSet.